Hello everyone. Well, I finally got a chance to attend my first VCF event. If you don't know, VCF stands for Vintage Computer Federation. It's an organization dedicated to preserving and promoting the history of computers and related technology. VCF organizes multiple conventions every year all over the United States, and they're the perfect place to interact with and buy vintage systems and components. I've been wanting to attend one of these for years, and this year, I finally got my wish. In fact, I was able to attend two of them, VCF Southeast in Atlanta and VCF West in Silicon Valley. Both events were an absolute blast, and I'm so glad I got a chance to experience them. My adventure started with VCF Southeast in Atlanta. Of course, I immediately gravitated towards the consignment area and found this IBM EduQuest 45. And if I didn't already own one, I would have most definitely grabbed this one. My only saving grace was the limited ability for me to get these machines home. There's only so much that I could fit in the little car that I drove up to Atlanta. Plus, I was flying out to San Francisco for 2 weeks directly after the weekend of this event. And there were so many exhibits with systems that I haven't seen in decades, like this amazing collection of Mac systems. These systems are maintained by Scott Beret of the Pittsburgh Classic Mac Lab. Scott is an educator who still uses these systems and their original software to educate children in the same way that us 90s kids had. It was absolutely surreal to see programs like Number Munchers, Math Blaster, and KidPix running on these machines. Scott owns an educational services business that operates in the greater Pittsburgh region, and it just warms my heart to see someone still using these machines for this purpose. I'll put links to some more info in the video description. Then I came across this Apple IIc running the Oregon Trail, and it just about took me out with nostalgia. This right here is the earliest memory I have of interacting with computers in kindergarten, and it's ultimately what sparked my interest in technology. And this system was surrounded by a few other classic Apple systems, most of which were for sale. Needless to say, my wallet and car were feeling very fearful at this point. While the exhibits were undoubtedly super cool, the absolute highlight of the weekend for me was getting to meet Adrian Black and the members of the Atlanta Historical Computing Society. And I can barely put to words how awesome it was to hang out with Adrian and the members of the AHCS all weekend. And I'm so grateful for how welcoming and friendly this community is. And thanks again, Adrian, for introducing me to this amazing group of guys. I hope we can do it all again next year. I was also very lucky to meet many viewers of the channel at both events. So many that I kinda lost count. Definitely more than 20 people in total. I really appreciate you all taking the time to chat with me, and it was so cool to meet you all. Getting recognized is definitely a new feeling for me, and it was so much fun to get to chat with so many fellow retro tech enthusiasts. I also got a chance to meet a fellow YouTuber by the name of the Tech Knight, who had this fantastic exhibit of a functional broadcast setup for the Weather Channel. It actually connects to the internet and displays current weather information. I absolutely love the preservation of this actual use case of systems from the past, and it was so fun to learn about all the crazy engineering challenges that he had to overcome in order to get this system working. You should definitely check out his channel. Yeah, there's just so much cool stuff here to see and interact with. There really can't possibly be anything else like this anywhere other than VCF. And considering the number of people I got to meet and the number of systems I got to experience, I was completely surprised when I was told that VCF Southeast is actually one of the smaller events. Well, it may have been small, but it definitely packed a big punch. In addition to the VCF event, there was an absolutely massive collection of retro games and pinball machines as part of the Southern Fried Gaming Expo. Everything was set to free play, and there had to be well over 1,000 machines here, including many retro home gaming consoles. So of course I had to play the arcade version of Battletoads, and I could not even capture the scale of this event, mostly because I was too distracted playing video games and pinball to actually get footage. But let me tell you, this place was awesome. Well, my ability to resist the consignment area could only last so long. The IBM Aptiva and the leading edge monitor finally broke me. Though in my defense, I was able to hold out until late Sunday. I was really surprised that these items went unsold for so long. I suspect the leading edge monitor has an amber phosphorus CRT. The cable is a bit damaged, but that's no problem to replace. But I for one can't wait to do some good old CRT repair. I also picked up this Gateway 2000 tower, sporting a Pentium 1 CPU. I also grabbed this very weird Commodore branded tower. Apparently the company behind this machine was sued into oblivion for using the Commodore brand without permission. I bought it for that fact alone. Otherwise it appears to be a pretty unremarkable machine. Plus it's pretty funny to see the Commodore brand on a somewhat modern looking system. I also picked up a couple of Seagate MFM hard drives that were still in their original boxes. Sorry for the abysmal hotel lighting here. This one is an ST225 half-height drive. Still has its faceplate and the original factory test sheet. This is the same model drive that I used to perform my very first upgrade to my IBM 5160 way back in the day, and I cannot wait to hear this thing operate again. The second one is an ST124 3.5-inch drive. It also has its original faceplate and factory test sheet, but the absolute best thing I acquired on this trip was given to me by Adrian. A Pentium Overdrive CPU upgrade kit. And this thing is just so super clean, I don't think it was ever even used. It came with all of its original documentation and software. And this chip is the perfect upgrade from my 486 PS1. Adrian, I cannot thank you enough for this awesome gift. After VCF Southeast, I flew directly to San Francisco for a 2-week vacation, and it just so happened that VCF West was scheduled right in the middle of that. So in addition to my first ever VCF event, I got to attend my second one only a week later. Silicon Valley is reasonably close to San Francisco, so I rented a car for the weekend and headed down there. And I am so glad that I did. There was just so much cool stuff to see here, like this gigantic Commodore Amiga tower. All of the eye candy is easily viewable through this glass side panel. And check out this massive SGI twin tower chassis. And right next to it was this IBM PS2 Model 80, which contained an Iris Vision card. Iris Vision was one of the first 3D accelerator cards for the PC platform, and there was a lot to interact with here too. I got to play with some of the fabled Power Computing Mac clones for the first time, and this was super cool. It's a PETSCI video display interface for Commodore systems called PetPix. Here it is streaming video from an iPhone. Have you ever been rickrolled by a Commodore PET? Well, now you have. Here's some more Amiga goodness. This exhibit had some super cool prototype examples like this airflow testing rig. It contains some resistive heating elements to test the cooling capacity of the case. Here's an exhibit showing Windows running on RISC systems. Well, that's definitely something I've never seen before in person. This Motorola tower looks like it could be just any other x86 beige box, but it's actually RISC powered. I'd sure like to play around with one of these one day, and I just about had coolness overload when I discovered ThinkPad heaven over here. You know I love ThinkPads. I wasn't able to get much footage here because I was just too eager to dive in and play with these. They had a 701C with a butterfly keyboard. This is like the holy grail for me right here. There were plenty of Apple laptops to play with as well. I found this combination of monitor and duo dock to be particularly aesthetically pleasing. The addition of the Apple adjustable keyboard was a very nice treat as well. The consignment area of VCF West was even more dangerous for me. I really wish I could have grabbed one of these IBM 5150s, but there was absolutely zero chance of me being able to get it home. Shipping items like these is always a risky gamble due to brittle plastic. It took every fiber of my being to resist. The thought of canceling my flight and getting a U-Haul did indeed cross my mind briefly. And seeing this Amiga for sale was also a great test of my self-restraint. There was plenty of media to be had as well, including these program tapes formerly owned by IBM with some forbidding labels on them. There was also an assortment of 5 1/4 inch and 8 inch floppy disks, with some DEC data cartridges thrown in for good measure. There were also some historic artifacts from the early days of Apple which were going up for auction, like this prototype mouse. Right next to that was an original ad for the Apple I that was handwritten by Steve Jobs. Here's a check that was signed by Woz and Steve Jobs, made out to a Palo Alto-based PCB manufacturer. This is likely a payment for PCBs associated with the earliest Apple I systems. So if you're an Apple enthusiast with tens of thousands of dollars to spare, these artifacts could be yours. I also came across a really interesting project called Unijoystickle. This is a device that allows you to connect modern Bluetooth-based game controllers to retro systems. It is definitely a unique experience to play games on an Amiga through a PlayStation controller. It also works with the Wii balance board. That was being used as a controller for this game, in which you have to run and jump. My timing was way off, but it was definitely the most unique way I've ever interacted with an Atari system before. I also had a chance to check out the Backbit Chip Tester Pro. I didn't get any actual footage of it, but I did have a great conversation with Evie, who's the creator of the device. Backbit also makes modern replacements for the PLA, SID, and ROM chips for Commodore systems. These are things I will no doubt be needing in the future. Definitely worth checking out. Have you ever wanted to play with a Commodore SX64? How about 8 of them? They had one of the units open so that you can take a peek at all the eye candy inside. That little CRT is just adorable. And here's some more Commodore goodness, with just about every Commodore tape drive you can even imagine. And not all of the computers on display were digital or even electronic. Check out this fully mechanical differential analyzer. It's a model of the machine created by Vannevar Bush in 1931, and it's made almost entirely from mechano-construction set parts. Here it is solving nonlinear differential equations. And seeing this thing in action really drives home the nearly unfathomable complexity of modern computers, and it really puts into perspective the enormous challenges facing the pioneers of early computing machines. In fact, VCF West is hosted in a very fitting place, the Computer History Museum. The museum alone is well worth the trip. It's likely one of the only places in the world where you can see certain things, like this IBM 1401 demonstration lab. You can actually interact with this system by entering your name into a punch card, and that punch card gets used to print out a souvenir commemorating your visit to the museum. The Revolution exhibit is also absolutely captivating. This place takes you through humankind's entire history of building computing machines, from the abacus to the iPhone. And I was just completely taken in by this exhibit, so I didn't get much actual footage. These are just still photos I took for myself. Yeah, I can't recommend this place enough. I could probably live here. In fact, the museum ended up closing for the day while I was still in there. If you're ever in the Mountain View, California area, absolutely check this place out. And of course, you knew this was coming. The consignment area got me. I could only buy these small portable items, which I hope won't raise too many eyebrows with airport security. But there was absolutely no way I was going to leave this thing behind. I was reunited with an old friend, the Mitsubishi MP286L. This thing looks like a laptop, but laptop is definitely a stretch. This thing is more akin to a luggable because it weighs almost 20 pounds. This machine is pretty special to me because I actually owned this exact model in either 2nd or 3rd grade, and I used to lug it to school every day for almost 2 years. Yeah, this thing was a huge blast from the past for me. It even came with its original carrying case, which I did not have back in the day. I also picked up this huge assortment of 3.5-inch hard drives, some of which are Apple branded, some various CPUs, and an assortment of SIM-RAM modules. And finally, I picked up this Seagate ST412 10MB MFM hard drive. This drive was most likely pulled from an IBM 5160, otherwise known as an XT. The XT I owned back in the day had this exact drive installed, so my ears are absolutely begging to hear it operate again. I don't have high hopes for it being fully functional because there's quite a bit of corrosion here, but I should be able to get some sounds out of it at least. The faceplate is unfortunately broken, so I'll have to repair that. Yeah, I am definitely going to have some explaining to do when TSA finds all of this. Adrian told me I shouldn't have any problems, so I do feel better about it. Well, I have to say, these two events were definitely some of the coolest experiences I have ever had. If you ever have a chance to attend one, I cannot recommend it highly enough. There's probably no other place on Earth where you can meet so many great people and interact with so many awesome systems all in one place. I'm already looking forward to the next one, but now it's time for me to head home. Well, I made it home, and my VCF loop made the journey safe and sound. And just like Adrian said, I didn't have any problems with TSA. I had 8 of those hard drives stuffed in the bag with the Mitsubishi system, and the guy who was running the luggage scanner had a very confused look on his face for like 2 solid minutes. But he ultimately let it pass without asking me any questions. And as much as I want to start tearing into this stuff right now, after that trip I feel like I could probably sleep for a year straight. Mike does not sleep on planes, like at all. But I'll be tearing into these in the next series of videos. But that's all for this one. Thanks for watching.